to the premises of those who employ big numbers of people, just so that they can facilitate them to have easy compilation, and if they had any doubts they could explain it there and then. So the transition in the mindset of being a tax enforcement authority to moving to becoming a tax facilitating authority is already happening, and I can see it. The performance report which has been presented to us is very clearly suggestive of that. So that's where we are. I leave it to you all to ask me any questions.
The floor is open to my friends to ask questions.
Ma'am,
first introduce yourself.
I'm Sam Daniel from NDTV. Tamil Nadu known to be the Detroit of India in terms of automobile manufacturing. Both manufacturers of automobile like cars and component manufacturers complain of massive dip in demands, leading to partial shutdown of their factories as well as closing down of companies like Sundaram Clayton, TVS Lucas. They all have announced non-holidays. They have two specific demands which they feel could revive the industry before the festive season. One, to bring down the GST, and to bring fuel under the GST. Are you working towards these two, ma'am?
First thing first, I've had the automobile industry also come and meet us during that week-long consultation that I held with different sectors. As a result of the consultation that I held with automobile, both the component manufacturers and also the automobile manufacturers, is a set of announcement that I've made in the first tranche of announcement that I came up with on August 23rd. And the measures were very clearly spelled out, and the inputs that I'm getting from the sector is that it can have a positive impact. So that is one thing. Over and above that, as and when I go, like today particularly, I'm meeting with the automobile sector in the afternoon, and some representatives were here already. As regards any suggestion or request coming on the GST rate cut business, it is not entirely in my hands. It has got to go to the GST Council, and the GST Council, where all the state finance ministers assemble, it is for them to take a call. I have suggested to them that I'll take it to the GST Council, but the final decision will be theirs. So that is one thing said. Second, from the central government side, we have already very clearly said that the depreciation rate, which is at the moment existing at 15%, this year we will increase it by another 15%, so the total will be 30% for depreciation. So that's also been already mentioned. Other than that, the BS4 to BS6 vehicle and the inventory which is getting piled up, we have very clearly said everything will benefit by the depreciation that we've announced, and there shall not be a confusion on the basis of Government of India looking at promoting EVs. We want all vehicles to have their due market share. It's not as if we are pushing one at the cost of the others. All this has been explained, but specifically on the GST, I'll wait for the council to take a call. Thank you.
I am Balavetchvel from Puriya Thalamurai. India பொருளாதாரத்தின் மிக விரைவாக வளரக்கூடிய ஆற்றலை பெற்றது. ஆனால் மோடி அரசின் தவறான மேலாண்மையால் மந்த நிலையை அடைந்துள்ளதுன்னு டாக்டர் மன்மோகன் சிங் வந்து காலையில ஒரு ட்விட்டர்ல ஒரு வீடியோ போட்டிருந்தாங்க. சோ அத பத்தி நிதித்துறை அமைச்சர் அப்படிங்கிற முறையில உங்க கருத்து?
கருத்து இல்லைங்க, அவர் கருத்து சொல்றாரு, நான் காதால கேட்டுக்கிறேன்.
Please.
Ma'am, I'm Pramila Krishnan from BBC News. It's, in the early this year, there was a study by the NSSO. It says it's not just the automobile sector, but India's half of the working age population for the first time is not contributing to any economic activity. It's talking about the job losses. It's not only the automobile sector. How are we going to handle the job loss in various sectors, starting from the farming to almost all the sectors? How are we going to bring up these jobs?
Ma'am, first of all, ma'am, while I take your point, that wherever there is a need for government to come up with facilitation and support, we are willing to hear those sectors and respond to them. And I'm not of the view that just the automobile sector, but every sector which needs to have a consultation with us, we have welcomed them. We are all years, we are hearing them, we are responding to them. After hearing them, we are also responding. And that is why even in my first tranche of announcements, I even on that very day said I will come with more, because the continuation of consultation is an ongoing process with some of the other sectors too. So even for them, we shall be coming and responding. But however, the data on jobs in India, even as much as was collected till before the government came in 2014, till before the government has come back again in 2019, have all concentrated on the formal sector only. And that is something which I'm not stating today. Everyone who deals with data, with statistics knows that. So, India informal sector employment has not been appropriately or exhaustively documented. We should also keep that in mind while we're talking about sectors where every sector is suffering. There are also informal sector in which jobs have also not been calculated or documented. I'm conscious of both formal and informal. The data collection on that is what I'm talking about. And I'm sure the measures are being taken by the concerned data collection, statistics and program implementation ministry. But I'm only taking this opportunity to highlight the fact that when we are referring to data from the government, like the NSSO that you referred to, talk only about the formal sector and not at all about the informal. And in India, the nature of our economy being what it is, in the informal structure, in the informal sector is where majority of our employment is. And there, if there is stress or anything, I'm willing to hear those respective sectors, is what I want to convey to you.
Ma'am, this is Bharani from Economic Times, on this side.
Yes.
Leaving aside what former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has said, the question on top of mind for many in the country is that whether we are in the midst of a slowdown, whether or not the government recognizes this as a slowdown or not, whether what we can expect from the quarters to come.
But you're saying whether or not the government recognizes, what question are you asking me then?
Whether this is a slowdown, are we recognizing
But
this?
you yourself are saying whether or not government recognizes or not recognizes. So are you asking me a question, or are you commenting on it?
I'm not commenting on it. I'm asking.
But you did say that, didn't you?
I did not.
You just said something to that effect. Or did I hear you wrong?
No,
Sorry
I did
about
not.
that.
I did not.
So what's your question?
My question is whether the government recognizes the current economic status as a slowdown.
The government has been in consultation with a lot of sectors which wanted to come and speak to us about the various measures that they expect, because in some sectors the inventory is piling up and so on, and different issues for different sectors. And having heard them and having spent some time to see how best we can respond, the first tranche of announcements were made on 23rd. Last Friday, I've made one other set of announcements. So I've also said I'll come back again as and when the process of consultation are over and we have worked on how we can respond. So I will be coming back to respond to sectors which have spoken to us and which want some relief from us.
Ma'am, Rajesh Chandramodi from the Times of India. I have 3 questions. When do you expect the announcements that you've made in the last 2 weeks to translate into visible change on ground in terms of sentiment upliftment and buying to happen? Because we are just about the time when the festive season is about to set in with Onam, which is the harbinger of all the festival season that goes on up to Pongal. And the second question is the rising gold prices. Is that a cause for concern from a current account deficit standpoint? Is there a gold monetization or a gold scheme that you're working on? And third is the pain on the exports front. Is there a policy or a procedure or a set of issues that you're working with the Commerce Ministry and DGFT on exports?
On the first one, when will the impact of the announcements that we have made? See, even in the budget, we had announced certain things. Like, for instance, giving the 70,000 crores for the bank capitalization. That's already, I'm showing you very clear milestone after that announcement to say how and through what kind of channel that would take its shape. So I expect that to start flowing already. Over and above that, in the budget again, we did say that we will take care of the liquidity-related crisis of the NBFC-related issue. The NBFC-related issue was not just liquidity, because it had governance issues, it had solvency issues, it had NBFCs which had borrowed heavily short term and were lending long term. And then, therefore, they had this problem of cyclical financial, gaps or voids which were coming up. So, in order to address that, we came up with this liquidity window, and also made sure that the first 10% will have a stopgap, in the sense sovereign guarantee given for the loss, first 10% loss. Even that has been notified by the RBI. And I know, as I was announcing an amalgamation of banks last Friday, at least 4 NBFCs have come out because of that relief which has been offered. Of course, there are several NBFCs in this country, but not all NBFCs are undergoing similar problems. One, liquidity is not a problem for all of them. Each one has different kind of problem. So already, the steps announced in the budget are seeing ground level changes, in that the NBFCs have already started receiving liquidity, bank capitalization has already seen the amalgamation happening, and the co-origination, which is one of the linked announcement, where banks have the liquidity, but NBFCs have the spread. Both of them together can work for any particular lending that they want to do. So the banks are not going to be sitting with liquidity saying, I don't know who to lend. NBFCs are not going to say, I have people, but I don't know where to get the money. We brought in this co-origination. So a lot of such steps which can have an immediate impact on the ground have already been worked. You are also in the field. You may be able to see what kind of impact it's creating. I'm sure we'll benefit from all the information you can share, we can share, and the industry can share. So if I were to, if that is the question you want to ask me, this is how I would see at various different levels, the interventions are being felt. It might be taking a while for me to assess and measure them. So that's my